但係見夠答案之前，我想教大家貼題先。究竟呢隻題目啦，係可以點樣變化去變成另一條嘅 essay 題目或者長題目呢？而作為一條長題目，最緊要大家要學識嘅就係跨課題嘅思維咯。2022年第11條題目咧，又去到寫文啦。今次呢條題目咧係涵蓋咗兩個範疇嘅。第一個範疇咧就係日常生活嘅例子啦。第二個範疇咧就係睇病學 bio 啦。所以我都好中意呢條題目嘅。今次呢條題目嘅主題咧就係生酮膳食啦。哪怕咧你係未聽過呢一個膳食咧，但係題目咧都有話俾你聽，究竟佢係乜家伙嘅。咁而家啦，睇翻題目啦。採用生酮膳食嚟減輕體重，近嚟咧越嚟受歡迎啦。呢一種高脂肪、中度蛋白質、極低碳水化合物嘅膳食咧，其實係控制糖尿病患者血液葡萄糖水平嘅一種方法嚟嘅。但係啦，呢個膳食咧喺減輕體重方面嘅效用咧就仍具爭議啦。題目咧要我哋做3件事嘅，嗱，斬得好清晰噶啦，3部分就話要我哋做晒就可以啦。描述生酮膳食點樣可以控制得到一個糖尿病患者嘅血液葡萄糖水平啦。第二啦，評價採用呢個膳食去減輕體重嘅可行性啦。第三啦，討論健康人士採用生酮膳食嘅健康顧慮啦。你睇翻近年嘅 essay 題目啦，其實佢真係將一條題目11分、12分咧畫得清清楚楚。我要你寫呢樣嘢，我要你寫嗰樣嘢，可能2部分、3部分、4部分。梁 Sir 教咗嘅寫 essay 嘅方法咧，就係 essay 變 easy 啊嘛，就係將一條可能得1句2句嘅題目咧。11分、12分，將佢斬件成為3部分、4部分，每一部分就變成3分或者4分，咁其實你已經答得到噶啦。更何況啦，有啲同學咧就會諗啦，喂，12分梁 Sir，仲有3分咧係有效傳意分，即係得9分，即係話啦，3分、3分、3分，喂，咪寫得好少嘢咯，啱噶，其實唔係咁多嘢噶咋，至緊要啦，你看穿條題目，究竟佢問緊你啲乜嘢？答翻出嚟，其實只係3條短題目咋，3分添啫，陰公，仲唔係要講4分啊？咁但係啦，梁 Sir 咧就唔會同你哋講嘅，哎呀，你當嗰12分入面咧有3分咧就係嗰啲有效傳意啦，唔好，12分就係 point，由頭到尾都係 point。我而家教你嘅 essay 變 easy 就係咁 firm 噶啦。當你順住呢個思考鷹架、答題鷹架去理解嘅話咧，剩低嗰3分嘅傳意分係攞埋啦，唔需要考慮咁多嘢啊。好，咁啊睇翻3部曲咯噃。第一部分啦，思考時間有咩嘅關鍵字要 highlight 翻嘅？生酮飲食啦，血液嘅葡萄糖水平啦，糖尿病患者啦，減輕體重啦，同埋健康考慮啦。第二啦，落筆之前有啲咩要留意呢？題目啦，有咩嘅重點啊？或者有啲咩嘢係唔使寫噶？一樣嘢咧就係貫穿3個部分嘅，就係生酮飲食嘅特徵啦。高脂、中度蛋白、極低碳水化合物有咩咁特別呢？對於啦一個糖尿病患者要控制血液嘅葡萄糖水平有咩幫助呢？咦，原來啦生酮飲食係一個極低嘅碳水化合物嘅膳食嚟嘅。咁對於啦控制血糖水平有冇少少嘅機制你都記得翻啊？最起碼胰島素你話到俾我聽啊！去到第3啦，咦，究竟佢係1型定係2型嘅糖尿病呢？係唔需要講嘅，因為題目根本冇問過你對於邊款類型嘅糖尿病患者，所以唔好花費篇幅去講佢咯。第二啦，就係有關於減輕體重咯。減輕體重啦，有一個好簡單嘅概念咧，一定關事嘅就係能量價值啦。究竟呢個生酮膳食嘅能量價值係多定少呢？話啦，當我哋想減肥嘅時候啦，我哋個身體點樣去管理好個能量嘅平衡呢？到第3啦，就係一個健康嘅人去採用生酮膳食啦。對於一個糖尿病患者，可以透過生酮膳食去控制血液嘅葡萄糖水平，但係我係健康嘅人嚟嘅啫嘛。如果我長期啦去食呢個生酮膳食嘅話啦，對我身體有冇任何嘅副作用呢？去到第3啦，就係答題鷹架啦，點樣將我哋嘅概念咧有系統地去表達出嚟咯。貫穿每一個部分咧，你都要噏得出啦。生酮膳食佢擔當住嘅角色啦，或者佢嘅重要性啦。例如啦，要控制血糖水平嘅時候，你就要諗啦，一個糖尿病患者究竟佢面對嘅係咩問題呢？而呢個膳食又點樣幫佢去解決呢個問題呢？第二啦，當我要減肥嘅時候啦，咁生酮膳食嘅能量價值又如何呢？時候就要做比較咯，比較下正常膳食同埋生酮膳食嗰個能量提供多或者少啦。 第二啦，有關於要減肥啊嘛，咁我哋就要講翻脂肪啊、蛋白質啊、碳水化合物呢三款嘢食呢，其實都係能夠釋放到能量噶嘛。但係我哋嘅身體去利用佢哋釋放能量嘅時候啦，有冇一個次序嘅呢？跟住啦，就要講翻呢生酮飲食有啲咩嘅限制啦。佢會唔會呢去引致某一啲嘅疾病噶？又或者啦，生酮膳食呢係忽略咗我哋嘅身體嘅某一啲器官嘅需求噶？好，咁而家啦，快手快啲 download 翻份筆記啦，我哋就即刻開始題目噶啦噃。好，咁啊，第一部分啦，就描述下生酮飲食啦，點樣控制到糖尿病患者嘅血液葡萄糖水平呢？呢個題目啦，唔使審啦，梗係關睇病學 bio 事啦。今次咩病啊？梗係糖尿病啦。過往都大把題目咧係講糖尿病噶啦，快手睇下片，溫下書咯。最基本嘅概念啦，大家一定要知得到啦。如果胰島素分泌不足，甚至沒有分泌，或者身體細胞對於胰島素沒有反應嘅話咧，就會導致糖尿病啦。嗱，咁對於糖尿病嘅基礎概念，我相信大家都應該有溫書，係一定會識嘅。咁而家我哋入題目咯，睇下有啲咩嘅思考嘅概念啦，利用翻一啲指引性嘅題目去幫我哋建構呢一段嘅文字咯。咁而家啦，我哋就嚟睇下啦，面對題目嘅呢一部分嘅要求呢，我哋用咩嘅引導性嘅題目去幫自己去建構答案咯。第一條題目啦，非常簡單嘅啫，就係點解糖尿病患者佢係唔能夠管理到一個正常嘅血液葡萄糖水平呢？當中有冇啲咩嘅荷爾蒙啦係牽涉喺其中噶？咁我相信呢隻荷爾蒙都呼之欲出啦，係嘛？第二啦，就係一個糖尿病患者，當佢食完一餐正常嘅飯嘅時候啦，嗱，唔係食生酮飲食，究竟啦佢會面對啲乜嘢嘅健康問題呢？咁當中啦，就梗係考下我哋糖尿病嘅症狀啦，係咪？對於血糖水平係如何呢？對於尿入面啦又如何呢？我相信呢兩條題目啦都應該非常之容易去解答嘅。第三啦，就係生酮飲食嘅特徵啦。題目講咗俾你聽噶啦，呢個特徵係點樣幫助到糖尿病患者去面對一個不正常地高嘅血糖水平呢？咁呢度啦，你要答我嘅呢就係啦，當一個糖尿病患者佢食咗呢個生酮飲食之後啦，所能夠攝取嘅葡萄糖究竟係多定係少呢？去到第四部分呢，你就要比較翻一個正常飲食同埋生酮飲食啦，佢哋會導致到嘅血糖水平嘅上升究竟有咩嘅不同呢？咁所以呢度就做比較咯。當中咧有個字眼提下大家嘅就係升糖指數啦。嗱，過往都有一段片咧係教大家升糖指數嘅，又睇下片溫下書咯噃。呢四條題目咧就係將我哋要答嘅嘢斬件碎上，我相信你哋一定答得到嘅。咁而家啦，斬晒件啦，預備晒啲配料啦，而家我哋就將佢炒翻埋一碟，變成一段文字咯。一開始啦，就係糖尿病患者，由於佢唔能夠製造到正常份量嘅胰島素，或者冇胰島素分泌得到啦。喺餐後咧，佢就唔能夠將個血糖降翻低去到正常水平咯。或者啦，佢身體細胞咧對於胰島素係冇足夠嘅反應，所以啦，佢哋嘅血糖咧就會比一般為之高啦。又或者糖尿病患者嘅尿液啦，入面就有葡萄糖嘅存在咯。而生酮飲食有咩咁特別啊？題目講啊嘛，你唔使吹噶。生酮飲食就係一個極低嘅碳水化合物嘅一個膳食嚟嘅。當我哋有咗呢個資訊之後，就比較下一個正常飲食咯。咦，咁同正常飲食比，食完啦、消化完啦、吸收完啦，對於糖尿病患者嘅血液葡萄糖水平嘅上升，有冇啲咩嘅唔同呢？咁我哋就發現啦，相比起正常嘅膳食呢，原來啦，當我哋食咗呢個生酮飲食呢，就唔會導致到呢餐後一個急升嘅血糖水平，又或者啦，佢哋呢仍然係有一個相對上穩定嘅血糖水平嘅。咁因為啦，透過生酮飲食所攝取嘅葡萄糖本身已經較為低。咁由於啦，正常情況下糖尿病患者呢，佢嗰個身體入面嘅糖原嘅量呢都係好少嘅。當佢進食生酮飲食嘅時候呢，葡萄糖嘅攝取又會少咗。佢哋身體入面嘅糖原其實亦都冇乜，就會導致到啦，佢哋就要拆解個脂肪呢，去釋放翻啲葡萄糖出嚟。因為我哋嘅身體呢，有啲器官呢，主要呢就係用葡萄糖呢去釋放能量嘅。但係啦，由脂肪拆解所釋放出嚟嘅葡萄糖呢，個量亦都較為少嘅。所以咧，亦都有助到糖尿病患者咧控制佢哋嘅血液葡萄糖水平。跟住啦，就去到第二部分啦，評價生酮膳食去減輕體重嘅可行性啦。其實呢條題目咧，同2014年嗰條 essay 咧都係好似嘅，就係食瘦肉去減肥啊嘛。今次就係生酮飲食去減肥啦。咦， 究竟能唔能夠成功減肥呢？有關於減肥嘅概念呢，睇翻呢段片，快手溫翻書先。當中有啲咩嘅引導性嘅題目可以幫我哋建構翻個概念啊？第一啦，就係要比較翻碳水化合物啦、脂肪啦、蛋白質啦呢三者嘅能量價值，邊個高邊個低啦？咁你睇翻呢個表格都知得到啦。最高嘅就係脂肪，第二就係蛋白質，第三就係碳水化合物。第二啦，就係有關於重量管理嘅時候啦，原來咧佢係關能量平衡事嘅，而呢個能量平衡咧就係講緊兩個概念啦。第一就係能量嘅輸入，第二就係能量嘅支出啦。咁而家我哋要減肥啊嘛，咁能量輸入同能量嘅支出嗰個比較究竟會係如何呢？跟住啦，去到第三部分啦，又去到生酮飲食嘅特徵咯，而呢個特徵咧係要關減輕體重事嘅。咁所以啦，喺生酮飲食入面啦，有冇啲乜嘢嘅食物物質係零舍多或者零舍少嘅呢？而題目係有話俾你聽噶嘛，即係照抄啦。簡單啲嚟講，係咪？去到第四部分呢，又要比較咯。今次就要比較下生酮飲食同埋正常膳食對於減輕體重嘅有效性，邊個高邊個低呢？咁當然啦，今次嘅重點係生酮膳食啦，所以你要諗下啦，我哋嘅身體對於生酮膳食係點樣反應嘅呢？當中有啲咩嘅新陳代謝嘅概念，我哋係要寫翻落去呢？緊要嘅概念就係究竟碳水化合物啦、脂肪啊同埋蛋白質喺我哋嘅身體嘅新陳代謝入面用邊樣去釋放能量先呢？嗱，呢個概念咧，大家係要知道嘅。第一個，我哋將佢拆解釋放能量嘅呢，就係碳水化合物啦。第二就係脂肪，第三呢就係蛋白質咯。咁有埋呢個概念嘅話呢，呢條題目就水到渠成啦。我要提你哋嘅只係一樣嘢啫，記得要講清楚生酮膳食對於減輕體重嘅有效性，因為呢條題目係講呢個生酮膳食對於減輕體重仍然具有爭議，即係有人係會認為佢可以幫助到我哋減輕體重，亦都有人係會覺得呢個生酮膳食係冇效幫我哋去減輕體重嘅。咁所以你要噏得出幾時有效幾時冇效咯噃。我預備晒所有材料啦，又炒埋一碟變成一段文字咯。一開始啦，邊款嘢食有最高嘅能量價值啊？就係脂肪啊嘛。相比起咧蛋白質同埋碳水化合物咧，原來佢有最高嘅能量價值啦。第二啦，就係體重管理嘅能量平衡啦。究竟係能量嘅攝取多一啲啊，定係能量嘅支出要多一啲，你先會瘦咗輕咗呢？咁原來啦，為咗我哋要去減重呢，每一日嘅能量攝取呢係應該低過我哋每一日嘅能量支出嘅，即係所謂嘅能量赤字啦。但係原因何在啊？就係有啲咩新陳代謝牽涉喺其中，就係當能量嘅攝取係低過能量嘅支出嘅時候呢，你個身體呢就會利用當初儲存咗嘅能量啦，例如啦，糖原啦，喺肝臟啦，喺肌肉所儲存嘅糖原啦，就會成為我哋嘅能量來源啦。講完呢兩句未夠，因為你要講翻生酮飲食嘅特徵咯。第一個特徵就係極低嘅碳水化合物成分啦，不然啦，我哋嘅身體就被逼咧要係利用儲存咗嘅糖原去作為能量嘅來源啦，因為我哋需要葡萄糖去運作噶嘛。而當我哋利用晒身體所儲存嘅糖原之後呢，我哋嘅身體就會利用儲存嘅脂肪去釋放能量咯。咁既然啦，燃燒得脂肪，咁自不然可以減到肥啦，咁應該有效。但係啦，生酮飲食都有另一個特徵，就係高脂肪含量。即係話相比正常飲食呢，生酮飲食佢嘅能量攝入係零舍高嘅。咁攝入多咗嘅脂肪會去咗邊啊？咪又係儲存翻喺身體嗰處。唔單止你食又食得多，仲要儲存，仲要佢個能量價值係比起蛋白質同埋碳水化合物為之高。咁究竟減唔減到肥噶？似乎唔係咁 work。咁所以啦，嗱，你要兩個嘅概念話晒俾我聽。因為題目都講到明係仍具有爭議性啊嘛，佢唔係問你生酮飲食點樣幫你減肥，而係問緊你喺乜嘢嘅情況底下生酮飲食可以幫到你減肥，又或者係咩情況底下生酮飲食其實係幫唔到你減肥，甚至令你變得更加肥，又好似食瘦肉減肥嗰條題目咁樣啦。所以啦，呢條題目咧想俾大家多一個概念嘅就係比較嘅意識啊。過往咧有好多年嘅 essay 題目咧，其實都無獨有偶地都係問緊比較嘅。有比較嘅話，即係起碼有兩樣嘢啦。咁即係話你要兩邊都講晒俾我聽咯。 跟住啦，去到第3部分啦，就係討論翻健康人士採用呢個膳食嘅健康顧慮啦。不然就係講緊一啲非傳染性嘅疾病，或者我哋講嘅生活模式病啦。咁啊，即管嚟睇下究竟有啲咩嘅引導性題目幫我哋建構概念咯。頭2條題目非常簡單，因為生酮飲食嘅特徵講到明噶啦，佢係高脂肪同埋極低碳水化合物。咁你就係話俾我聽啦，咦，生酮飲食有呢2個特徵，會引起啲乜嘢嘅健康問題呢？而呢2個特徵之所以會引致健康問題，就係因為佢哋都係一啲生活模式病嘅高危因素。咁所以有啲咩嘅概念你要留意翻啦，就係不均勻嘅膳食啦，營養過剩或者營養不良都係問題嚟噶嘛。同埋啦，講得白啲啦，講到明食得咁多脂肪，梗係同黐肥有關係噶啦。咁同黐肥有關係嘅又係啲咩嘅疾病呢？同埋啦，你又要諗下喎，喺我哋身體當中有冇一啲好重要嘅器官，佢有一啲特別嘅需求呢？例如我哋嘅腦袋啦。根據呢幾條嘅 guiding question 呢，我哋又可以建構答案啦。但係建構答案之前，我想教大家貼題先。究竟呢隻題目啦，係可以點樣變化去變成另一條嘅 essay 題目或者長題目呢？就係講緊唔同嘅膳食去導致唔同嘅疾病。而作為一條長題目，最緊要大家要學識嘅就係跨課題嘅思維咯。究竟啦，揸住一個飲食，揸住一個疾病，點樣可以跨課題呢？第一款啦，就係加工嘅肉類。我唔理你係鹹魚定係醃過嘅嚇，無論用酸去醃啊，用糖去醃啊，唔緊要，總之係醃嘅。當中啦，醃製嘅時候可以考下你滲透嘅概念啦。我用啲醋去醃嘢食嘅，咁啊個酸鹼值對於個酶嘅活性有咩影響呢？又或者可以問下你啦，透過醃製點解可以抑制到微生物嘅成長呢？從而就可以達到保存食物嘅功能呢？除咗食物保存之外啦，又可以問下你一啲經過食物傳染嘅疾病，甚至乎啦，經常食用加工嘅食物會唔會導致任何癌症啊？例如我哋今次2022年考嘅呢條大腸突變，咪就係呢個例子咯，可以係一條 essay 嚟噶啦。第二啦，就食海鮮咯。海鮮有咩可以問下你呢？個海咁污糟，咁多污染物，問下你幾樣嘢得唔得啊？問下微塑膠又得唔得啊？問下重金屬又得唔得啊？佢哋會唔會喺食物鏈度積聚，成為一個生物積聚 bio-accumulation 嘅現象啊？又或者啦，食完海鮮有人會過敏嘅，過敏呢係一個好簡單嘅炎性反應，而炎性反應啦，又關我哋嘅身體防衛事，係咪一嘢可以串晒咁多款題目啊？另一款嘅飲食呢，就係有關於斷食咯，例如啦，近期好興嘅就叫168間歇式斷食咯。咩意思呢？一日24小時有8個鐘呢，任食唔嬲嘅，食乜都冇所謂，另外嗰16個鐘就唔食啦，你要斷食咯。咁呢個方法啦，點樣可以有助我哋去減肥呢？又或者降低血壓呢？當中有啲咩嘅概念呢，都可以問你嘅。所以如果你問我有關於食嘢啊，有啲咩嘅貼題大方向呢？暫時我諗到嘅就係呢幾個啦。好，貼完題啦，又將頭先嘅概念咧炒翻一碟，變成一段文字咯。生酮飲食有咩嘅特徵呢？低嘅碳水化合物成分同埋高嘅脂肪，當中有咩問題呢？原來我哋個腦呢係好奄尖嘅，佢主要呢就係用呢個葡萄糖去作為能量嘅來源嘅。嗱，生酮飲食作為一個極低碳水化合物嘅飲食呢，其實對於我哋葡萄糖嘅攝入呢係好少好少嘅，咁所以啦，血液嘅葡萄糖水平咁低，自不然就會點啊？暈咯。又或者呢，由於生酮膳食佢個葡萄糖攝入呢係極低啊嘛，所以我哋個身體呢就會被逼去虛耗咗，用晒我哋嘅肝臟啊、肌肉啊所儲存嘅糖原啦。咁所以嗰個人啊，話即使血糖低咗嘅時候，有冇辦法去釋放翻足夠嘅葡萄糖，去提升翻血糖水平呢？就唔見得有能力啦。所以佢個人呢，就成日血糖低嘅情況底下就好攰，好易暈咯。跟住啦，去到高脂肪啦，就仲衰啦。高脂肪梗係關黐肥事啦，黐肥啦，除咗黐肥之外啦，就係太多嘅脂肪啊、膽固醇啊塞住咗血管啊，自不然就會大啲機會患有冠心病啦，同埋中風咯。好，又嚟到一點出發啦。今次嘅題目呢，就係講生酮飲食嘅題目，都有講到佢個特徵噶啦。 高脂肪、中度蛋白質同埋極低碳水化合物咯。然後題目有3個部分，第一部分就係問血液嘅葡萄糖水平啦。第二啦就係減輕體重，第三就係高危因素啦。有關於血液葡萄糖水平啦，有少少概念都要考下你嘅，就係荷爾蒙協調啦。起碼你要記得胰島素啦。咁當然啦，高糖素都要記得，但係呢條題目咧就唔使寫咁多住啦。然後咧就有關於減輕體重咯，體重管理咧就關能量平衡事咧，我都拍咗段片咧係有關於食物同埋能量精讀嘅，咁啊快手睇下片溫下書咯。然後咧就去到高危因素啦。嗱，作為一個糖尿病患者，題目講嘅生酮飲食都可以幫佢哋咧控制血液葡萄糖水平。嗱，呢個咧係冇錯嘅，但係代唔代表佢係一個絕佳嘅方法咧？又唔代表喎。因為啦，作為糖尿病患者咧，其實個身體嘅糖原儲存咧，其實都好少嘅。咁即係話，當呢啲糖尿病患者利用呢個生酮飲食嘅時間咧，佢所攝入嘅葡萄糖本身已經好少，佢又冇能力將一啲糖原釋放翻出嚟變做葡萄糖啊嘛，因為佢真係冇乜糖原啊嘛，係咪？咁佢要點做啊？就要拆解脂肪去釋放能量，同一時間亦都拆解脂肪，將佢轉化成為葡萄糖，從而將啲葡萄糖釋放翻去血液當中。但係問題就嚟啦，當我哋拆解脂肪釋放能量嘅時候咧，其實個病患者係有機會面對一個血液酸化嘅現象。呢個病就叫做糖尿病酮酸中毒啦。因為大家都起碼學過酶嗰課啦，佢哋就喺最適當嘅酸鹼值嗰度去做嘢嘅啫嘛。而家血液酸化咗啦，唔再係正常嘅情況底下啦，係有一個好大嘅負面影響嘅。所以嚴重嘅話咧，係會死人嘅。好啦，綜括咁多嘢，其實都係講緊健康身體啫。而健康身體同減肥啦，自不然就要講下 BMI 啦。BMI 嗰條數識唔識計咧？同埋啦，生酮飲食又有啲咩嘅限制咧？嗱，雖然生酮飲食咧入面都係有機會有一啲蔬果嘅，但係問題就話啦，唔係有冇嘅問題，係夠唔夠嘅問題。一個人佢食生酮膳食，不過啦，佢食唔夠膳食纖維嘅話咧，自不然佢就會面對便秘啦，或者提升咗咧佢患呢個腸道癌嘅風險。問完限制啦，就梗係問下有咩辦法改良下佢啦，係咪？咁所以啦，又會問下你建議咯。你想試下生酮飲食唔緊嘢，不過咧記住食翻多啲菜，食翻多啲蔬果，同埋啦有關於健康身體同埋飲食嘅，梗係要講下均衡飲食啦，係咪？對於均衡飲食咧，梁 Sir 有套哲學咧，成日教班學生嘅，就係 You are what you eat, you eat what you need。人當如其食，人食其所欲。咩意思呢？我係好中意顯空法師成日講嗰個道理嘅。見到芝士蛋糕呢，哇，好正喎，係咪？但係啦，當你明白到芝士蛋糕係乜嘢，佢個本質，佢個真如就係肥啊嘛，脂肪啊嘛，糖啊嘛，你就明白到你自己食緊啲咩落肚啦。嗰啲能量啊，嗰啲脂肪啊，就會儲存喺你個身體嗰處。咁我應該食乜嘢啊？食你所需要嘅嘢。而咩叫你所需要嘅嘢啊？我係咪跟翻食物金字塔去食就算數啊？唔係，食物金字塔只係一個指引，真真正正話俾你聽乜嘢叫均衡飲食嘅呢？係基於你嘅年紀啦、性別啦、你嘅工作啦、你嘅活躍程度啦、你嘅身體狀態啦，去作一個計算嘅。所以點解先有營養師嘅出現啊？一個大肚婆同一個肥嘅女士，大家個體重可能都係好高嘅。你兩個都咁重啊嘛，梗係食同樣嘅嘢啦。No， 大肚婆有大肚婆嘅均衡飲食，一個肥嘅女士佢有佢嘅均衡飲食嘅需要。呢個就係叫做人當如其食，人食其所欲嘅意思啦。2022 Question 11。Let's talk about the essay writing question. So this question, it involves two aspects. The first aspect is about the daily life issues, and the second aspect is about the disease approach. So the main theme of this essay writing question is about the ketogenic diet. Recently, the use of the ketogenic diet for achieving loss is becoming popular. In each, this high-fat, moderate protein and very low carbohydrate diet has been used as an approach to control the blood glucose level in diabetics. However, the effectiveness of this diet in achieving weight loss is still controversial. So there are three very distinctive parts in this essay writing question. First part, describe how a ketogenic diet can be used to control the blood glucose level in the diabetics. Second part, we are going to evaluate the possibilities of using this diet for weight loss. And for the third part, we need to discuss the health concerns for adopting such a diet for healthy persons. So let's take a look at these 3 steps. First step, thinking time. Any keywords we need to highlight: ketogenic diet, blood glucose level, diabetes, weight loss, and health concern. And before we really write the essay type question, so any focus of this essay we need to realize first, or anything we do not need to write about. You can see that for these 3 parts, we need to use a very key idea. It's about the features of the ketogenic diet. And by using this information, we need to talk about how can this diet help the diabetics to control the blood glucose level. Because we can see that it is a very low carbohydrates diet, and you need to mention a very brief mechanism of the blood glucose level regulation. So what about the type 1 or type 2 diabetes? You don't need to talk about it, because the question doesn't specify which type of diabetes patients we need to help. And secondly, about the weight loss, we need to mention the energy values of the ketogenic diet. And surely, we need to mention the mechanism of losing weight. Thirdly, we need to talk about the healthy concerns for the healthy persons who is adopting this diet. Therefore, we need to think about any side effect of the ketogenic diet. And for the scaffolding, how can we present our idea in a systematic way? Surely, we need to recall the role or the importance of the ketogenic diet on maintaining the normal blood glucose level. Firstly, we need to think about what's the problem faced by the diabetics, and then how does this diet, the ketogenic diet, deal with this problem. Secondly, we talk about the losing weight, so we need to think about the energy values comparison among proteins, carbohydrates, and fat. And we also need to think about the metabolism in our body. What is the priority of the food substance to release energy? All these 3 food substances, they are the primary food substance. We can break it down to release energy. But which one is the first, second, and the last reserve? Finally, we need to recall any limitations of this ketogenic diet. For example, any potential disease caused by this diet, or this diet neglect the biological need of our human body. So you can download the essay writing worksheet and then follow the video to follow the concept for the scaffolding. You can see that for this 12 marks, and there are 3 parts. So there should be 4 marks for each part. Mr. Leung teach my student about the essay writing question is that we neglect the effective communication, these 3 marks. We think about that all these 12 marks, they are all the points, all the key ideas. Don't think that, oh, there are only 9 marks. No. Think it 4 marks. You can think about it. You can do it. Believe in yourself. So let's talk about the first part. Describe how a ketogenic diet can be used to control the blood glucose level in the diabetics. Surely, it's talking about the disease approach. And the disease is diabetes. So you can watch all the videos about the diabetes for revision. Basic idea. If the pancreas produces too little or no insulin, or if the body cells do not respond to insulin, a condition called diabetes mellitus occurs. So you have the very basic idea, the fundamental knowledge about the diabetics first. Then let's go through any guiding questions to help us to construct our knowledge. First of all, we need to recall the failure of managing the blood glucose level in diabetics. Why can the diabetics not manage the normal blood glucose level? So you need to recall the hormone involved to regulate the blood glucose level after meal. Certainly, it is insulin, right? You are able to answer this question. Secondly, we need to realize the health problem of the diabetics. So we need to recall the sign of the diabetics. Think about the blood glucose level and also the urine. Thirdly, you need to think about the features of the ketogenic diet. What will be the amount of glucose intake after having ketogenic diet? Because we need to think about that. For the ketogenic diet, it can help the diabetes to control, to manage the abnormal blood glucose level. But what is the idea behind that? Think about the glucose intake of the ketogenic diet. Finally, you need to compare the rise in the blood glucose level caused by the normal diet and the ketogenic diet. That means you need to think about the impact. And in this point, you can recall the concept of the glycemic index. There was a question before about the glycemic index, and then remember to compare different types of. So after we break down this part into small parts, so let's group them together to become a paragraph. Remember how to write an essay successfully. Present your idea bit by bit. First of all, why can the diabetics not manage the normal blood glucose level? Because they cannot produce sufficient amount of insulin or no insulin to lower the blood glucose level after meal, or the body cell cannot adequately respond to insulin. So what is the health problem? The diabetics' blood glucose level will be higher than the normal level after normal meal. Or we can find that the glucose will be present in the urine of the diabetics. And then think about the features of the ketogenic diet. The ketogenic diet is given that it's low in carbohydrates. And then what is the impact? As compared with the normal diet, the consumption of the ketogenic diet will not lead to a sharp rise in the blood glucose level, or result in a relatively stable blood glucose level. And it's because after metabolism, only a small amount of glucose will be obtained from the fat of the ketogenic diet. So you should know that for the diabetes patient, they do not have a large amount of glycogen storage in their body cells, because the body cells cannot uptake enough amount of glucose and convert them into glycogen. Meanwhile, for the ketogenic diet, the glucose intake is also very low. Therefore, the patients, they need to convert the fat into glucose to replenish the glucose in the blood. However, the amount is so small. Therefore, it can help the diabetics to control the blood glucose level. Secondly, we need to evaluate the possibility of using ketogenic diet for weight loss. So this part is very similar to the 2014 essay writing question. It's about the lean meat diet. Is it possible? And we need to think about both of the possibilities. Is effective or is not effective? So let's take a look at the guiding questions. First of all, you need to compare the energy values among carbohydrates, fats, and protein. So refer to this table. You should know that the lipids, they have the highest amount. Secondly, we need to think about the energy balance for the weight management. What does it mean? It means that we need to compare the energy intake and the energy expenditure of this person to achieve the weight loss. And you also need to think about the metabolism involved in the energy intake. Thirdly, we need to identify the features of the ketogenic diet. Again, this part is related to the possible weight loss. We need to identify the food substance of significantly high or low level. So in the question, it's given that high fat and very low carbohydrates level, right? And finally, we need to think about the impact on the body metabolism. We need to compare the effectiveness of losing weight by having the normal meal and the ketogenic meal. It means that we need to realize how our body reacts to such diet. And particularly, we need to think about the priority of the food substance to be broken to release energy. For the first priority, we use carbohydrates. Secondly, lipids. And for the last energy reserve, we have proteins. So apart from these four guiding questions, remember to talk about the effectiveness of the ketogenic diet for losing weight. So what does it mean? Let's go through the whole paragraph. First of all, the fat contains the highest amount of energy per kg of food among carbohydrates, fats, and proteins. In order to lose weight, the daily energy intake or input should be lower than the daily energy expenditure. When energy intake is lower than the energy expenditure, the body will use the energy reserve, for example, glycogen stored in the liver and muscles as energy source. And then we identify the features of the ketogenic diet. It is low carbohydrates content. It means that the body is forced to use the stored glycogen as energy source, because of the low glucose intake from the ketogenic diet. And if the glycogen is insufficient, the body will use the stored fat instead. So it means that the energy released from the stored fat, and it will be an effective way for losing weight. Meanwhile, the ketogenic diet is also high fat, so the energy intake may be higher than the normal diet. Therefore, the fat stored more energy than the same mass of the proteins and carbohydrates. So it shows that it may not be an effective method for losing weight. So you can see that I talk about both situations, but not just talking about, for the ketogenic diet is effective or is not effective. At a certain circumstance, it is an effective method. And at a certain circumstance, it's not effective at all. So that's the reason for the ketogenic diet to be that controversial for losing weight. This part, I also want to introduce you the concept of comparison. And you can see that most of the essay exams, so you can see that in past essay writing question, there is comparison elements in the questions. Thirdly, we need to discuss the health concern of adopting such diet for healthy persons. So for this question, we talk about the non-infectious disease, or we can say that the lifestyle disease. And any guiding question can help us to answer this part. Firstly, we need to realize the health problem of excess intake of fat and inadequate intake of carbohydrates. So we need to identify the features of the ketogenic diet as well. So any food substance of significantly high or low level. And then we need to recall the concept of the risk factor of the non-infectious disease and identify the biological needs of the human body. Therefore, we need to recall the concept of unbalanced diet, overnutrition, and undernutrition because there is high fat, very low carbohydrates, right? And then recall the disease related to the obesity surely is about the high fat content, and we also need to recall the needs of the vital organs, for example, the brain. So after we break down the guiding question, surely we can group them together to be a paragraph. And before we go through the paragraph, I want to show you the possible question variation. So any different types of diets related to the diseases, and we can formulate it in a question, no matter it's a long question or a essay type question. After going through all these years past paper, we know that the very high level question requires high order thinking. It's about the cross chapter. So how can we answer the questions about different chapters in one question? For example, the diet is about the processed meat, no matter it's heavily salted or pickled food. So we can think about that, for the salted fish, we can talk about the osmosis, or we use the vinegar, or we can talk about the effect of the pH on the enzyme activity, or how the processed meat or preserved food, it can inhibit the growth of the microorganisms as a food preservation method. Or if we do not preserve the food, there may be foodborne diseases. And what about we have a habit of eating processed meat or preserved food, and any disease we may have higher chance to suffer from. For example, the colorectal cancer mentioned in the question 7 of this year. Secondly, what about seafood? We can think about the pollution in the sea, microplastic, heavy metal. So there will be bioaccumulation in the food chain. Or some people, when they have seafood, so they may suffer from food allergy, and it is a mild inflammatory response. And we can ask you about the body defense as well. Or any new method for losing weight. For example, this 16-8 intermittent fasting. It involves consuming food during an 8 hours window and avoiding food or fasting for the remaining 16 hours each day. So you can see that for these 24 hours, how can we allocate the time for eating? And this possible method to reduce weight and lower the blood pressure. So what is the mechanism behind that? Any biological theory we can apply for it. So after the possible question variation, let's talk about the whole paragraph. First of all, we need to identify the features of the ketogenic diet, low carbohydrate content and high fat content. And for the low carbohydrate content, what is the health problem we are facing? For example, the brain cells, they use mainly glucose as the energy source. So a very low carbohydrates intake may result in a low blood glucose level, leading to dizziness. And consuming a ketogenic diet will use up the glycogen storage. Reason is also about the low blood glucose level. Person cannot regulate the blood glucose level to the normal level. And what about the high fat content? Surely it may result in obesity or the blockage of the blood vessel due to high fat, triglyceride or cholesterol levels in the blood. And this diet may result in the cardiovascular disease or stroke. So let's talk about the curriculum mapping. This question starts from the ketogenic diet and is given that the features of the ketogenic diet, and that it asks us for 3 ideas. We need to do the revision about the hormonal coordination, particularly insulin and glucagon as well. And then for the losing weight, we need to think about the energy balance, so you can watch the video about the energy balance. And then for the risk factor, I would like to introduce a new disease. The disease name is diabetic ketoacidosis. So the idea is that for the diabetics, they cannot store the glucose in the body cells by converting them into the glycogen. And due to the low glucose intake from the ketogenic diet, so the patient, they need to break down the fat to release the energy and also convert the fat into glucose in order to make some glucose to release them to the blood and try to maintain the normal blood glucose level. However, during this process, the blood pH will drop. It will affect loss of the enzyme activity. In the severe case, you will die. So, and then we combine all the ideas. Surely, this question is about the healthy body. So when we talk about the healthy body and the weight, surely we need to introduce the idea of BMI. How can we calculate the BMI? Are you familiar with that? And then any limitation of the ketogenic diet. Some people, if they adopt ketogenic diets, however, they do not intake sufficient amount of dietary fiber, they may suffer from constipation or the gastrointestinal cancer, just like the colorectal cancer. After we talk about the limitation, we can talk about the modification. Any suggestion? For example, you can suggest that, remember, eat more fiber, even you adopt the ketogenic diet. See that from this question, the features of the diet, the limitation of the diet, and the modification of the diet, you can see the whole story. And surely, for the diet, we have to introduce the concept of balanced diet as well. So I always teach my students about the philosophy of the balanced diet. It's about you are what you eat and you eat what you need. I love the metaphor given by one of my teachers, 釋顯空法師, and he taught me Buddhism in university. I love his metaphor about the cheesecake. People love cheesecake. Wow, it's delicious. And when you understand the truth about the cheesecake, so you may not eat it at all. Cheesecake, high fat, high sugar, obesity, cardiovascular disease. So you may choose not to eat it at all. And then you eat what you need. So that's the secret of the balanced diet. So we just need to follow the food pyramid to eat. Not really. Our dietary requirements follows our age, sex, level of activity, and body status. For example, a pregnant woman or a fat lady. Both of them, they may have a high body weight. It doesn't mean that they need the same diet. Different people, they have different needs. So that's the idea of the you eat what you need.